Have you ever heard of Phoenix Point? It was that game Julian Gollop was designing. Yeah, the lead designer behind the original XCOM. I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't know it came out, because it came out this December with almost zero fanfare. Probably because there was some controversy with that. We'll definitely talk about it, but how's the game? I decided to give it a try. In order to talk about this, I have to assume you're familiar with the XCOM genre already. We'd be here for a fucking hour otherwise. The intro cinematic gives us all the info we need. Global warming has melted the ice caps enough to expose a new virus, which they call the Pandora virus. It turns out when people get infected, they run straight into the ocean and come back as mutated monsters. From the looks of it, the world is already fucking over. It's not like XCOM where you're trying to prevent the apocalypse. You start Phoenix Point just kinda in the middle of the end of the world. There's no fanfare to your arrival either. You're just the commander of one isolated cell of the Phoenix Project, which is pretty much just like XCOM, but if they got their funding cut right before anything happened, which is actually really realistic. Pretty much immediately, you can see how insane this is compared to the modern XCOM games. You don't just click on a mission and hit go. You have to load your dude onto a ship and load your dudes up with gear and decide how much ammo they'll carry, whether they'll get extra shit like grenades and med kits. It's all stuff you have to consider, and each soldier has stats and perks to upgrade, so if your guy can't carry all the stuff you need, you can just upgrade his strength and carry all the shit you want. This backpack also applies to battle, so if you down a bad man, you can loot his body for any of the cool shit he had and carry it back home after the mission. There's also a ton of classes to choose from, and they're all fucking fun as hell. You get assaults that can sprint around the map, heavies with jetpacks, engineers with turrets and robots arms, psychers, melee guys, snipers, stealth crossbowmen, cars, dinosaurs. There's a lot of options, a ton of variety, and a ton of fun. And if you want to mutate or augment your boys, that's there too. Alright, cool, that sounds fucking awesome. Let's get into a fight. Well, at a glance, this looks almost exactly like XCOM. There are some huge differences. Let me just show you what happens when you shoot at someone. You notice something missing? That's right, your shots aren't governed by a dice roll. You shoot a burst of shots at the enemy, and each shot has its own hit calculation, and that hit calculation isn't a dice roll either. The shot goes anywhere in a cone denoted by the circles on the UI, and you don't just click the enemy and click fire. You can choose exactly where each soldier aims. And on top of that, every character has a limb system like in Fallout, where disabling it will do a variety of things, like shoot their heads so they can't use psionics, or just shoot their entire fucking arm off so they can't shoot at you at all. This applies to your own guys too. If you don't have two working arms, you can't use two-handed weapons. You can still fight if you brought a pistol, but that's good backpack space you might be using for all those crazy grenades you unlock. You also have to choose where your soldier overwatches, so you can't just use it brainlessly when you don't have anything better to do with your actions. The ballistic system is incredible, and it is probably the selling point of the game if you're a fan of the genre, but I do have a feeling that the designers didn't account for just how big of a change that is from XCOM, but we'll get to that. We're having fun, let's not ruin it. Your soldiers operate on action points and will points. Action points for actions, will points for abilities. The biggest difference from XCOM is that moving one tile doesn't instantly end your turn, so you can move out of cover, take a shot, and move back in, or even fire twice in a turn if you don't move. That's a unique ability in XCOM. Your whole squad gains will on killing an enemy, and taking a loss will cause them to lose will points. If the unit's will points get too low, they can't use special abilities. If it goes below 0, the unit panics and loses a turn. This system also applies to the enemy, so if you inflict enough losses, the enemy might panic and run away, or you can use special weapons to damage their will directly to neutralize them without actually having to kill them. After you finish a mission, you'll get goodies and standing with one of the 3 factions. You can't put it off any longer. I can say with confidence that Phoenix Point has the worst faction rating I've ever fucking seen in a game, and just pretty weak writing in general. I really couldn't bring myself to give a shit about the flavor text from research, or just the story missions in general. The 3 factions are the Disciples of Anu, New Jericho, and Synedrium. Anu is a cult that sees the virus as an opportunity to improve the weakness of humanity. Kinda like tech priests, but instead of replacing weak flesh with strong steel, they're just replacing weak flesh with less weak flesh. New Jericho is a faction founded by the billionaire Tobias West, and they are ANCAP militarists that care about their genetic purity and see the virus as a military threat. I said ANCAP, and I wasn't kidding. One of them accused me of violating their NAP.
Have you heard of the non-aggression principle?
Synedrium is the one I hate the fucking most. Their goal is to create a society without any class divides, a true democracy and complete inequality. I mean, that's all well and good, but every other fucking line is written like commentary on modern society rather than something the characters would actually think.
Maybe you're right, and our whole approach is wrong. Maybe authoritarian capitalism is the only way to go.
Now, visually and gameplay-wise, these factions are all fucking great. Jericho is all angular and industrial. They use magnetic Gauss weapons and they can augment their soldiers. Synedrion is all sleek and futuristic. They use laser weapons and stun weapons, and they can augment their soldiers for stealth rather than direct combat. And Anu is all alien-looking, and they can just straight up mutate their soldiers. You can look at anything from a faction and immediately know what faction it belongs to. While I'm talking about it, the whole game looks great on a technical level. The models and textures look great, and all the environments can break apart and get destroyed. It runs great most of the time too. I had a few issues with the game chugging hard on certain maps with the cameras zoomed out, and I suspect this is an engine thing. While the graphics look great, I'm really not that big of a fan of the Pandoran designs. They just remind me of Power Rangers monsters more than anything, and really undermine the potential horror of the virus that makes people walk into the ocean and come back with a giant beetle instead of legs. It's a shame too, because I think the Pandora virus has a lot of potential for cool visual design. Something like The Thing, David Cronenberg, or even the motherfucking Graham Apocalypse would fit the virus more than these Teenage Mutant Ninja Crabs looking motherfuckers. What's weird to me is that all the early screenshots and art show a much darker design with a clearer element of body horror. You can see it looks more like a human got ripped apart and grafted to a giant crab and is holding a weapon it clearly stole rather than just the gun being a part of it. There's a lot of early screenshots that have this style and they all look great. I love the scary looking enemies, completely overcast skies, and buildings that look more like aggregated biomass than real buildings. It kind of reminds me of the necromorph moons from Dead Space. This specific image is actually in the intro, but all the cool shit I like is cropped out. Overall, the designs aren't bad, but I feel like they made a mistake with the style change. But ultimately, they read well and communicate gameplay well, so it doesn't really matter what I think. Good job, Julian. Unfortunately, I can't say the same for the sound. The effects themselves are perfectly serviceable, but you're just lacking that fucking bite you get from XCOM sound design. The music too, it's serviceable, but it's mostly mellow, quiet stuff. Good for tactical thinking, I guess, but just completely unable to build tension you'd expect from a firefight. Again, it's pleasant. I just don't think the direction is very good. These track names are fucking metal though. It's kind of funny that the soundtrack does 0 for building tension, because the gameplay is absolutely void of tension at all. In the Geoscape you have a timer, which represents how long until the virus drives everyone crazy, but I never thought about it while playing, because you never interact with it. I don't think campaign timers are inherently bad. The difficulty of tactical games pushes players to farm missions to make it easier, stalling plot missions to research and manufacture more stuff. The issue is that it's boring, so games like Mechanicus, Invisible Ink, and XCOM 2 all have campaign timers to make you ration your time as another resource. The trick with those games is that you can interact with the timer. In XCOM 2, the aliens are working on the Avatar project and will continue to make progress as time goes on, but you can blow up key facilities to slow them down. Ignoring those facilities will advance the timer even faster, so it's a punishment for inaction and a reward for action. Here it's just a fixed amount of time, which is way more than you need anyway. I finished the game with 47% because you can get strong fast. Now, I want you to check the date on this video real quick. If it's old, skip to here. You'll see why. Just hop in the portal. Now that all those weird future people are gone, let's talk about balance. Here's a unit you can build from the start. Yeah, it's a fucking car. It shoots 2 rockets to a target area, has a ridiculously long range, the missiles can shred armor, destroy cover, and can hit enemies you can't even see. The car is fucking hilarious. The only downside is that it takes 3 unit slots, so you just can't field like an army of them, which would be fucking amazing. On top of that, the level 4 perk for everyone is a dual class option. You pick the class they duel into from your list of unlocked classes. You start with some basic ones, but one of the basic ones is the Assault, which is supposed to be the mobile and versatile jack of all trades class, but you can just dual class anyone as Assault from the fucking go. They have a weak point, just dual class them into Assault, there you go. Here, watch a sniper run the entire fucking map. Did I mention a downside to the sniper class's mobility? Well, you wouldn't have fucking guessed, watching my guy clear the map like a goddamn track star. You can't actually get fresh rookie stock like in XCOM, you have to buy them from the factions, and you don't get to choose who you get. The soldiers come from the pool of that faction's unique classes, which you unlock if you're good enough friends with them. That means if you do like 4 missions for Anu, you can dual class anyone as a Psyker. The level 2 perk for Psykers is Mind Control, and it's fucking busted. The cost of Mind Control is based on how many will points the target has left, and you can cast it as many times as you have the will for. If you're fighting a demoralized enemy, you can just run in with a Psyker and Mind Control like 2 or 3 in a single fucking turn. It costs 1 or 2 will per turn to maintain, and it doesn't break once you hit 0, it breaks the turn after that. So you're able to end a lot of fights by just making sure everyone's mind controlled, even for 1 turn, because that just ends combat instantly. And if you can't mind control them, you can easily force panic every threat in range. Now, I don't really have an issue with getting overpowered in games, but the enemies are not equipped to handle how powerful you can get. If an enemy poses a threat to you, you can just disable the body part that gives them a threatening ability. That will also inflict a permanent bleed on them, so if you don't have the damage to kill something outright, you can just make it bleed and it'll probably die off camera. I never even needed to do that, since all Psykers carry viral weapons, which damages an enemy's will over time. Shoot them twice and they get stuck in a panic loop for like 25 fucking turns. Here's me bullying what's supposed to be a late game boss enemy because I got it in a panic loop. You can also get weapons that deal paralyzed damage, which will completely stun an enemy if it's high enough, but if it's not, it reduces action points. So 1 shot and they're just useless in combat, 2 shots and they're functionally dead. And Synedrion's unique car has a melee attack that inflicts like 12 aeons of fucking paralyzed. What is this? The enemy AI also seems to not be that bright. If you stun them or disable a body part, they usually just waste their turn and some will just up and fucking leave when you disable them enough. On top of not really being threats, the enemy spawns are fucking terrible. They're just kind of spread throughout the map with no cohesion at all. I think they might be moving around before you discover them or something, but there would be vast swaths of map that were just empty because the level only had like 5 guys in it and they all spawned in the same quadrant. Sometimes they even spawn adjacent to each other, so you could just kill them with the car. Do you remember the enemy spawning system in XCOM? Enemies would just spawn in cells of like 3 or 4, and if you spot them, it plays a little animation, and then all those enemies activate and usually run right at you. Now, this system has its flaws too, since if you activate a cell at the start of your turn, it's no big deal since you can account for it with the rest of your squad. But if you discover a cell at the end of your turn, you can get totally fucked, since you don't have the actions to respond to it. I feel like when they were making Phoenix Point, they just looked at the spawn system from XCOM and thought, nah, that's lame. Let's not put that into our game. And apart from spawning very few enemies all over the map, enemies also never bring in reinforcements. And fucking nothing ever happened that changed a battle mid-fight. Other tactical games do this right though. XCOM will ship in extra units in the middle of a fight, and Mechanicus will have extra Necrons wake up at the exact most inopportune time. I think I know exactly what happened too. I bet they looked at other games adding reinforcements and thought, that's dumb, we don't want any RNG in our games. Let's not do that, while ignoring the reason to put reinforcements in. Tactical games need to change things up in the middle of encounters, because once you know what the situation is, the actual strategy isn't that hard. Just fire from cover while slowly and safely pushing up. The real strategy comes from managing unknowns, and well, yeah, XCOM manufactures a lot of its unknowns with its dice rolls. Phoenix Point doesn't even really attempt to replace it with anything. I never had one of those oh shit moments while playing. Because the enemies in fights aren't really challenging, battles themselves would be in this weird limbo zone where they have all the elements to be fun, but they just got more and more tedious as time went on. This made me just ignore scavenging missions whenever I'd find them. You get resources sometimes just randomly as you explore, and you get rewarded with resources for doing missions and saving havens. You can stop the Pandorans from raiding havens by attacking their lairs, and those missions are just fucking trivial because they end the instant you kill the big thing. So you could just shoot it with the car from across the fucking map and it ends the mission instantly with a victory. This happens with a few mission types since not all of them require you to kill all the enemies before you can win. Here's me clearing a level in 1 turn since I knew from the beginning it worked like this. Now, I thought I'd get some peace for a while since I was prioritizing taking out the layers, but
Synedrian claims to stand for anarchism, but
We're declaring war on Synedrian. Why? They have no idea what...
At Synedrian, we value religious tolerance, but...
John Stuart Mill wrote, "Bad men need nothing more to compass their ends."
oh yeah, the factions will declare war on each other. They'll start sending war parties to raid other havens, and if they win, they just destroy the entire fucking haven. Why the fuck? They also declare war on you and do the same to your bases. Why the fuck? You are already managing reputation levels with them, since most actions you take will piss some people off and arouse others. But once they actually started killing each other, I just completely stopped caring. It was pretty fucking funny watching Jericho declare war on everyone and then just completely get their shit pushed in.
The Jericho Haven is under attack.
What I think the game is really missing is character. There is zero flavor to your own organization. You don't meet a single person from the Phoenix Project. You don't get anyone cool like a Bradford to tell you you're doing a good job, or a Saigon to tell you about all their cool science. There's also so many flavor details that are just missing. Like when you do an autopsy in XCOM, you get a little cutscene and a voiceover talking about how strange and exciting it is, and then when it's done, you get to read about how the aliens work. Phoenix Point just gives you a really dry text saying like, it looks like a crab. And then when you finish the research, it's like, yep, there's crab DNA in there. This really just kills my investment since there wasn't a single character I cared about or even fucking liked. This applies to combat too. There is very little flair added to anything. Combat animations always happen in the tactical camera. The camera doesn't zoom in to show you cool shots when something happens. It also never zooms into enemies, and enemies will never do any flare animations. This means that the game will sometimes introduce enemies with zero fanfare, and it is amazingly tone deaf. Like, here's the first encounter with the largest enemy I ever found. Yeah, he's just hanging out, isn't he? It's really just missing someone to come on the radio and be like, oh, what is that? I know it can be annoying when characters just talk at you.
Commander, the aliens continue.
But come on, man, give me something. This also applies to the animations too. They completely lack character. Like, here's mind controlling a unit in XCOM.
You're under new management now, and I'm already seeing dozens of things we're gonna need to change.
And Phoenix Point. Here's the late game attack in XCOM.
The new age of man begins with me!
And here's the strongest attack I unlocked in Phoenix Point.
This'll slow me down, but it won't stop me.
Shit, time travelers are coming, fuck. Now, I sent you to this part of the video because everything I had to complain about can either be fixed easily by rebalancing or just adding something in, and I'm actually pretty confident the developers will fix most of it eventually. They have a very public issue in New Feature Tracker, and they've already fixed several of the issues that I encountered while playing. Shit like infinite mind controlling and missions ending instantly is already fixed. I think this will absolutely be one of the best tactical games on the market, but they definitely have some work ahead of them before then. On their crowdfunding page, they also have unmet stretch goals that look really awesome, like floating bases and underwater missions, which I expect they'll eventually turn into DLC. They're currently selling a season pass for 5 DLCs. One of them is out, it's the one for augmentations, and the details for the next 2 are already released. It looks like they've mirrored the other XCOM games where the initial release is kind of lackluster, but it gets DLC later that just completely changes everything. I may have just been playing the equivalent of Enemy Unknown without Enemy Within, or XCOM 2 without War of the Chosen. So, should you buy it? Well, that, depends. If you're watching this after December of 2020, you can just skip to here. Back in the fucking portal with Yi. You see, Phoenix Point was actually crowdfunded when it started development. Then, right when the Epic Store exclusives were about the hottest controversy on the internet, the developers actually approached Epic to be a timed 1-year Epic Store exclusive. This pissed a lot of people off, especially because the game was crowdfunded. It felt like the devs took the crowdfunding money and then went off to go take the Epic money. People have a lot of different reasons for hating Epic, but my main gripe is with the sales. See, I almost never buy games on release, simply just because I play way too many games to be able to afford them at full price. Unless it's a multiplayer game I really want to sink my teeth into while it's fresh, I'll just try to forget about the game until it goes on sale like a year or two after its release. Like right now, I'm really chomping at the bit to play Bannerlord, but I'm not trying to spend $50 fucking bucks. That gets kind of fucked when it's an Epic exclusive, since there's no way in hell Epic will put a game on sale while it's exclusive, and Steam won't put it on sale while it's new on their store, so you might have to wait an entire extra year for it to go on sale. This argument could just be flat out wrong, since Borderlands 3 was an Epic exclusive that hit Steam about a month and a half ago, and it's already half off, but I'm not sure if that's the game's fault or not. I think the developers might be using their Epic Store money to fuel all those updates I was talking about, so maybe they'll get a lot less diligent after they stop getting that money. Alright, let's open the portal again. Why did I have to do this review now? I'm so fucking retarded, dude. Alright, hi. Should you buy Phoenix Point? At the current moment, I'd say it's not worth $40, but that could change within a few months. It might get a No Man's Sky moment where they fix everything and everyone talks about it, or they'll just quietly fix everything and nobody will ever learn about it, who knows. I'd say check it out. If you're feeling iffy, just wait a bit and check again. At its core, Phoenix Point is a great game with awful writing, a ton of balancing issues, a general lack of soul, but still a great game that gets better with every update. If you're a fan of the genre, it's definitely worth checking out once they fix some stuff. Wait, why are we still here talking about what ifs? We've been using time travel this entire fucking time. Let's just go play the game they should have released.